Talk, founder of Charity Excellence. This webinar is one of our charity AI best practice guides, and this one is on bot attacks on meetings on webinars. In February 25, we launched our AI Ready program. We had 900 people for one of the launch webinars, and we were attacked by a swarm of AI bots. And they wrecked it within minutes. The following day, we were in the sun. That's how quickly it can happen. And it's not just higher profile organizations like us. Subsequently, a number of charities approached me and said, yeah, we're really sorry. We had exactly the same thing as happened to you. They were not large charities. They were not high profile. I created my guide. It's available on the website, much more detail and all the links. You can go straight there. This is a quick run through to help anyone just take the steps that they need to keep their charity safe. So, getting it right for your charity. If you haven't got any security, that's obviously not great. And vulnerabilities may well attract AI bots. So that cannot. But if you apply absolutely everything you can out there and 23 letter passwords and such like, and all the security measures, it increases the administrative burden on managing and running meetings. It reduces your effectiveness because it ties one hand behind your back, and it creates a risk of security fatigue. If you make it really complicated and difficult, people will eventually stop doing it. So what we need is the Goldilocks approach. The AI consultants and experts may well disagree with me. Well, they probably will. My suggestion is that when it comes to security, not too much that it impacts your ability to do the job well, not too little so that the risk becomes unacceptable. It needs to be just right. So how do you do that? Look at the scale of the risk. Cause, they don't need me to tell them, but our Jewish and Muslim and LGBTI communities are inevitably targets for hate on a regular basis. The same can be said for people like women's groups. However, anyone can be attacked. Communications. If you have a significant online profile or if you've got a significant profile within the media, they are more likely to seek you out. We think that's what happened to us because it was such a high profile event. Contributors. Obviously, there is more risk of harm if you've got very large numbers of people present. We had 900 people, or the participants are vulnerable. For example, young people under 16. Circulation. You are more likely to be attacked if the meeting is open to absolutely everyone. We do webinars, we do them for the whole sector. We open them to everyone we have to, particularly if it's widely promoted. Content. If you're having a beneficiary case meeting and you're talking about very sensitive material, or what you're talking about is in some way confidential, obviously for that meeting to be compromised is more of a serious issue than other meetings. And controls. If you have inadequate security or if your software is not up to date, then it may be the AI bots, particularly trained to search out vulnerabilities, will find you. So you go through these and you think to yourself, just how much of an issue is this for my charity? Oversight and management. I say repeatedly to trustees, it's a bit like finance. You don't need to be an accountant, but if you get it wrong, you're dead. AI is exactly the same. You do not need to be a cyber expert. I'm not. But you do need to make sure that you understand that it's being managed well in your charity by asking the right questions. So choose a reputable platform. Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google. Don't just switch the damn thing on. Go and look at the security measures, decide which ones are relevant for you, and make sure that they've been enabled. Ensure that online safety is a responsibility of someone. It can be one of your committees, it could be a lead trustee, but someone somewhere goes, this is something for me to do, and that I will make sure it's done. And make sure that those who are running meetings are aware of and trained in what the risks are and what they need to do about them. Doesn't have to be rocket science, just make sure they are. Webinar registration and meeting IDs, always very useful. Have a think about whether you need them. This is off-piste. I told you I'm not a cybersecurity person. Weird stuff is your friend. You can sit and talk all day about prompt injection attacks and all that kind of stuff. What I have found is if you see something weird, don't ignore it. We get thousands of registrations every month. I was online. There were two charities side by side, both of whose name was two letters and both were block capitals. That isn't usual. So I went looking and I found quite a few more. And the appointments of the people who were there were things like orthopedic surgeon, welding riveter, not quite what I would normally expect. And then when I saw the emails, it was stuff like sex.com. They'd been scraped off porn websites. It was an AI spam bot. And it had been taught how to fill in all the registration process, and it could get through the Google Read capture. We now have an AI bot killer behind the registration, but you can see how that kind of thing works. Someone I know has a very distinctive accent. He phoned me up. Conversation was fine. He was working in Africa. He was telling me what he was doing. And then he said, I need you to wire me $500. Classic scam stuff. And an NHS manager does not use terminology like wire. So these are the kind of things to watch out for. If it just doesn't look right. I had a LinkedIn message. It was from a senior board member. He said, we've got a very sensitive board issue. We really need to talk to you. Here's a document attached. And it's just, I get those kind of messages. And he was a genuine connection. I just wouldn't have done it that way. So I contacted him. They'd cloned his account. Someone came to me. They've been contacted by a friend on social media. There's a fabulous website. They make donations to charity. It's perfect for you. She went to them. They just wanted her to send them the £100 that they needed to set the whole thing up. It didn't sound quite right. She contacted me. The website was perfect except for one thing. Everything in it was an American organization with a Z. I did a reverse search. I found the real charity. It was in the US. So if you see something and it isn't right and it's just a bit weird, go and check it. Just go and have a look. That may be the first indication you get. So, suspicious registrations attendees, unusual email addresses, Mickey Mouse at google.com. Would Google's got one O and two L's. Anything like that. The ones I had, sex.com, porn website things. That's scraped. Anything, go looking for strange stuff like that. Incomplete or vague registration details. The AI bot actually isn't able to complete the whole form because that's not how it's been trained. So if you start seeing those kind of things, then that's worth watching out for. Unusual patterns of behavior. You normally get about 30 people register for your webinar. You've got 60. And 30 of them join within half an hour. That's worth going to have a look at. So during your meeting, enable the waiting room. They can't get in unless you let them. So you can actually check who's in the waiting room and click them in one by one. I mean, we had 900. It's a bit difficult, but waiting rooms are really good. Disable screen sharing. If a bot gets in, if it can't take control of the screen sharing, it can't stream porn. Disable annotations, the ability to write on the screen. When the bot attacked us, in the minutes beforehand, there was like little scribbles on the screen and things. It's like, what on earth is that? It was the bots. Disable the annotations, and they're not able to do that. And assign co-hosts. I often, almost always, do webinars my own because I'm just it. There's no one else in Charity Excellence to do it. But having a co-host who's actually monitoring the chat, watching people and seeing things, that person is much more likely to spot if something hasn't gone quite right. And watch for attendees not participating or video off. And you're going to say, well, that's perfectly normal, particularly if you're recording. Yeah, I get that. Um, Bots can't run video. You can't watch the bot on screen. So if someone's on screen, it's registered, and it's apparently someone in your account that you know and you would expect them and they're not there, and it's a bit unusual and they're not saying anything, and it's a highly interactive meeting, that's something to watch out for. It's an indicator. And monitor for unusual activity, stupid or strange comments in the chat, that kind of thing, those kind of weird giveaways that something's not quite right. That's a good indicator that you've got a bot. And what happens if you're attacked? Remove the participant immediately. Just delete them. What happened with us is it was a swarm of bots. So the minute one was kicked, another one appeared. That one got kicked, another one appeared. So be aware you get that. Lock the meeting. Unlocking the meeting stops anyone from re-entering, even if they've got the registration or the ID or anything like that. It kick them out, lock the meeting, they can't get back in. Mute all participants. If someone is Zoom bombing your meeting and they want to shout stupid stuff or rude words or anything like that, mute everyone, you've stopped them. If the stuff put up on the screen or in the comments, copy it just in case you need to talk to people like the police. So, for example, um, streaming pornography when there are children present, or if that pornography is extreme, or if it involves uh, material with children in it. Those kind of things are automatic criminal offences. They are a must report to the police kind of thing. Get the screen grabs. It helps maybe track them down. And if they are able to track them down, then potentially that's useful for them as an evidence. Notification and reporting. Once it's all done and dusted, go out and tell everyone at the meeting what happened and what you've done about it. Show them that you're a professional and that you're responding well. That's about protecting your charity's reputation. Notify the platform. It may be that there is a pattern to this, and by telling Zoom or Teams or whoever, they may uncover that pattern and they may be able to stop this happening to other people. So that's a good thing to do. And you may have mandatory reporting. Bots may be there to insert malware or ransomware. They may be trying to steal sensitive information. If you have had a loss of sensitive information, that is a data breach. You may need to report that to the ICO. If what happens is very serious, you may need to put a serious incident report into the Charity Commission if you're in England and Wales, or Oscar or CCNI for Northern Ireland, and you may have to inform the police if what happens was particularly distressing, if it was hate material, if it was pornographic material about children, that kind of thing. So be aware, and also make sure that you tell people in the charity and your board who are going to want to be aware of this in case there's any kind of media coverage. We made page 11 of the Sun. And funnily enough, review your security settings because the damn thing got in somehow. And then be aware, AI is evolving very, very, very quickly. And so what they can't do now, they may be able to do tomorrow. They may have found a flaw in a security vulnerability in your platform security. It might not actually be you, but go back, find out how they did it, and think about what else you might need to do to safeguard that going forward. And use of AI meeting assistants, they're brilliant. They work really well. But when you have a meeting, there is somebody listening to you now. Check the security features, enable the stuff that needs to be enabled to make sure that that information is secure. GDPR, you must keep personal information secure. Your assistant is recording that information. Two-factor authentication, it really irritates all hell out of me with stuff like Microsoft, but it is a really, really good way to stay safe. Review your privacy settings. You know, who can see this? How can they see that? Always, always with everything, not just your AI assistant, make sure that the software patches and updates are all in place and that you keep them updated. That is one of the best ways of stopping vulnerabilities that bots can get through. Be cautious about sharing sensitive information. Our background is in the military. We ran on a need to know basis. If people don't need to know this, they didn't get told it, no matter who they were. So if you're briefing your trustees on a meeting and you're talking about a beneficiary, you don't need to say it was Mrs. Julie Smith of this address, etc., 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 who has had these things happen to her that are really terrible and extremely sensitive. One, if your trustees don't need to don't tell them whether they want it or not. And two, if you're talking like that in a meeting and you have a bot, the bot is recording it all. If it's a side conversation, we just go, oh, yes, and this is what happened, and this is where she's gone, and she's going to be here next week, and that kind of thing. It is all being recorded. So don't say it. Be very careful about that. And take care in sharing minutes. So when you have the bot minutes, don't just send them out. If there has been that kind of side conversation that you've forgotten about, but which was actually really quite sensitive, that will now be in there. If you did need to talk about Mrs. Smith or whatever, then think about going back and redacting her name out and just write redacted a beneficiary. When you send the minutes out, if you've had the auditors in the room for one part of the agenda and you send them the entire minutes, if you send them the confidential section, that's also a breach. So the problem with these things is they run in the background and they're really clever and they're really good and you can just get in the habit of sending this stuff out. Don't. Always just check it. Always think, always take care. And further help and resources, you can find these on the webpage. And there is a whole series of guidance there, people at the ICO. And I've also put some useful resource links in there. So if you want to go into Teams or Zoom, there's guidance there on what you need to do in order to make sure your security settings are where they are. I hope that was useful to you. Thank you very much for listening to me. Goodbye.